Boxing King Media, episode 8 of the Brutally Honest podcast. We've gone from the 40 degrees heat of Saudi Arabia, Riyadh, to a back room in your gym, Dom.
Well, I came via Dubai, so I had a few days in Dubai after the fight, swanning about, being in the sunshine, a bit of a chill, and then back to rainy Winkerbank.
You couldn't make it up, could you? First day back, and it's absolutely hammering it down.
Yeah, but it's a good reminder, isn't it, where we're from, and that's how life is.
It is. We obviously spoke after the fight. I think it was like 7 in the morning. You was half asleep. I was half asleep.
It was earlier than 7. It was about 6:30 because 6:30, 6:45 because I was waiting for my breakfast. I didn't start well 7:30, so I had to jump on that plane with no breakfast that I'd paid for, which being a Yorkshireman, kind of rubbed me up the wrong way.
All right. Okay, that must have been hard to get over because the food was nice in that hotel, to be fair.
Well, thanks for that.
But yeah, like I said, we was half asleep. We did a bit of a review on the fight, and I thought we'd just kind of sit down now. A couple of days have gone by. Have you had a chance to watch the fight back?
Yeah, I've watched it, and it was a good fight. On the night, look, it had thrills and spills. I watched most of it on the screen because everybody was in front of me, jumping over seats. It's everybody was. I call it jimmying into seats. There were people sitting in seats where they shouldn't have been sat. We were sat amongst a lot of Usyk's fans. And there were a lot of Tyson's fans sitting in seats they shouldn't have been, and they were getting ousted out, and it was interesting, so we had to contend with that as well as watch the fight. But I watched most of it on the big screen. A lot of people standing up in front of me.
What surprised you the most about the event? What surprised you most about the event? Because it's your first event you've been to in Saudi Arabia. You will have seen a lot of reviews, negatives, positives. What was
what? It was better than I expected because, like I said, I heard a lot of there's no atmosphere. They're not really interested in boxing. But to be honest, it was a good atmosphere, and it was well organised. It reminded me of a big event in England, but there was a little bit. I think there was a little bit of trouble. I think behind us. I didn't stand up and have a look, but I did think what would have happened if drinking had been served, because what I noticed was there wasn't that kind of it. You get in England, you get like an aggressive crowd, and nobody was drinking. Plenty of people sneaking in there and vaping, but no drinking. I think that made a big difference. And for me, it was a better experience because sometimes it can get a bit out of hand. And I would imagine if people had been drinking that night, it'd have been like it had kicked off after how the result was.
A lot of people don't realise that, and that safety aspect of being sat in the crowd and knowing that nobody's going to really kick off, no one's on edge, there's no crowds of fans, having a go at each other. So yeah, that is quite a positive. What do you make of the fight? Obviously starts. I know you picked Tyson in a split decision, so obviously I'm assuming you expected it to be a really nip and tuck fight. Were you surprised with the way Usyk started? Because there's a lot of debate about who won them early rounds. I know Eddie Hearn's come out and said he felt Tyson dominated the early rounds, but Usyk's team feel like Usyk was landing to the body and he was winning the rounds. So
my initial thought was, the first round could have been a draw. After that, I thought Tyson was doing enough to nick the rounds. That's what I thought until. Obviously Usyk was having success, and then he got caught, and it all changed from that point. So I'd say that, you could argue that the first round was a draw. You could even say that Usyk got it if you had to pick a 10-9 winner, because the judges want you to, the organisations want the judges to pick a definite winner. But it could have been either, I would say, a drawn round or a round for Usyk. And after that, I think Tyson kind of got control and got his groove going. But he was having to constantly work, and I did think at some point he's going to catch up with him, and he's going to pay the price. Because I think with Usyk, he's used to fighting bigger guys. He's going to have, even though he's a little bit older than Tyson, he's got a good engine, and that's the way he fights. But you could see it was getting hard work for Usyk. There were times when he was getting caught, and you could just see him thinking, "This is my moment. There's absolutely no way am I gonna crumble like this." And you could see him just digging in and regrouping all the time. Every time there was a bit of adversity in the fight, he kind of stepped back, took a deep breath, and then got back in again, because he thought it's a do or die situation. I've been working towards this fight for so long, Obviously he's not going to die in the ring, but he was prepared to go all out. And if he got stopped or banged out doing it, it was a chance he was going to take. And obviously Tyson's been in that position before, but when you're on top of the hill and you're the king and you're the champion, there's only so many times you want to go to the well. That was, for me, really the first time that Usyk had to really, really, really dig in deep against a bigger guy. And there were times, you know, Tyson were making it look easy. He could see Usyk having to ask questions about himself. But Usyk just kept on the pace, kept forcing the pressure and thinking, well, at some point, he's going to either fall to bits, I'm going to catch him, or he's going to continue like this, I'm going to get beat, but I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing because it's the best success I'm having.
What do you make of the fact that, you know, Usyk started on the front foot and he kept saying all week, I'm not going to leave you alone, and it was quite obvious that were his tactics, to be on the front foot. So to a non-boxing fan or somebody who doesn't know the ins and outs of it, I assume Tyson being on the back foot, being pressured, that mentally, physically drains you.
There's only one way you can fight Tyson. There's only one, realistically, that's the way Usyk fights, coming forward. He can't let somebody like Tyson, who's got height and reach, dictate the pace and stand there picking you off. And you coming in and getting picked off. I think I said in an earlier video, Tyson needs to be in the middle of the ring, letting Usyk come in, picking off and making him go back. But he didn't. He biked up and let Usyk push him back. And it's quite easy. When you're going backwards, it's actually easier than moving forward going backwards if you're good at what you're doing. But that's the only way really Usyk could fight. That's the way he's got to do it. He's got to keep the pressure on Tyson. He can't let him be relaxed. Because at times when Usyk stood off him, the little burst when he did, Tyson found his flow and put his combinations together. He had time to think about what he was doing. But when Usyk was constantly pressuring him, he didn't really have time to think about what he was doing. He's flicking out the jabs, throwing shots, didn't think about it. And then he got caught with the only shot that the shot that he shouldn't have got caught with. Usyk's best shot is that shot off the backhand, the sweeping left hook. Well, sorry,
yeah.
That's Southpaw, come on.
Yeah.
Sorry. Sweeping left hook. And Tyson had avoided it to you know, most of the way through the fight by pulling back. He did double rolls out the corner, got away. But basically, if you know that's the shot that Usyk's going to hit you with, it's very simple. Stick it outside of your face. That's what you got to do. Keep it there when you jab. When you're going into attack, always think, right, it's going to come bang. It's going to come bang. Block it. And all Usyk had to do was land that shot once. Do you understand? And he really did only land it once, effectively, to the point. All right, he was catching Tyson with it. But at the time when he caught Tyson clean with it, Tyson was a little bit fatigued. You could see he was slowing down. Every time he come back to the corner, from where I was looking, he looked like he was breathing heavy. Usyk was also feeling the pace, having to push off a bigger guy. And in time, Tyson got a bit complacent and his hand came down and bang, he hit him. And then he started connecting with all the other shots. And you'll tell me, how many unanswered shots did Tyson take?
It was quite weird, because I was going to ask you about this, because I was watching the slow-mo of that moment where he was hurt, even though he's clearly buzzed. But subconsciously, he was kind of still trying to slip shots in his head. So it's mad that even in that zone, a fighter can still try and slip shots.
Gone onto automatic pilot.
Autopilot,
That's what he did.
Yeah.
And when you think about it, a lot of people, he should have been stopped. You know, the referee's bent. He should have stopped it. But I think the referee was American. Am I right? Or he wasn't an English?
I think he was American or Canadian.
Right. So the always the thought pattern with American referees is you've got to really be knocked on the floor. Look at Tyson when he got dropped by Deontay. He was asleep on the floor, and an English referee would have stood over him and waved him. But the American, or in the US, they let him and he got back up. That referee will have known this is a very, very high profile fight. It can't be decided on a referee getting a bit flaky and saying, you know, this is it. But even though Usyk was having clean shots, more or less clean shots, some were skimming him at Tyson, he still couldn't drop him. And the referee had been thinking, well, if he goes down, I'm going to give him the count. And Tyson was still moving, still trying to avoid shots. All right, he was taking the shots. It's not like he was stood on the same spot getting hit with 5 and 6 shots on the spot. Like you see with so many fights. You'll see a fighter get hit, they'll be slept standing up, and then the shots will keep coming in, and they'll slump, and then the referee will step in. But Tyson, he was moving, he was trying to move, he was trying to still make a defence of it. And he fell into the ropes. All right, he bounced off the ropes a few times, but then he fell into the ropes and he would have gone down, but the ropes held him up, and that's when the referee gives you a count. That's the only time they give you a standing count in professional boxing, if the ropes hold you up.
I think Carl Froch made the point that it was about 3 times that he fell on the ropes.
Yeah, but he fell, but he didn't stop him. He still kept moving. It was only the last one when he kind of fell on the ropes and stayed there, and then the referee gave him the standing count. And you know, if the referee had stopped that fight, any other point apart from, you know, have stopped that fight there would have been an outcry. There would have been, and I don't think, you know, people saying, oh, they denied Usyk the stoppage, but if it had got stopped, Usyk wouldn't have been happy with that, because people would have complained and saying, no, it should have never been stopped. It should have never been stopped. So he couldn't have won either way. The point is, he got the count, he got the points. Do you understand? And he got the win. So I don't think personally that, and I've seen 4 worse situations than that when referees should have stopped fights and they didn't. So, you know, you got to give credit to Tyson for the shots he was taking full on. Some of the shots full on unguarded, and he still managed to stay on his feet.
The other big talking point has been the corner work. I know he had 3 people in his corner. He had Sugar Hill, his dad John, and Andy Lee. I'm just quoting Carl Froch here. In fact, I'll just read out the quote direct rather than just guessing it. He basically said, okay, I can't find the bloody quote, but in a nutshell, basically saying there's too many people in the corner. It should just be one voice, etc. But I know in the past he's had, I think the Wilder fight, he had Ben Davison, Ricky Hatton and Freddie Roach. And I know nobody complained then.
Well, no, you're wrong there, because that's where you're wrong.
Go on.
After that fight, Freddie Roach slagged off Ben Davison.
All right.
100%.
What did he say? I can't remember.
I just remember him saying something about Ben Davison. I remember. And that's why, subconsciously I thought to myself, that's why I never have people in the corner with me. I never have. I have the people who go in the corner, but nobody gives the advice, only me. When I'm the head corner man. And I've been asked to go in other people's corners. I have been in other people's corners as a cutsman. But I remember Billy years ago inferring that I might, you know, work with him in the corner with Ben Davison. I won't do it. And I don't want anybody in my corner.
But
so, yeah, you can only, look, I don't know how it works for Tyson. You know, everybody's different. I always remember the first time I was in the court, I did a fight for Billy, and the changing room was absolute chaos. He had all his kids running around, all his friends in there. You know, it was madness. And I'm looking around, I'm thinking, it was like one of them films when you see a man running out the flames. An explosion's gone off, and the action hero's running out the flames, and all this chaos is going on behind him. And I'm looking around thinking, this is madness. It's like a fairground. I went, all right with this? He went, yeah, no problem, just normal for Billy. That's how he operated. So it might be the same for Tyson, but it can't be good, can it? Because especially if you're getting, it's different if somebody's backing up what you're saying and reiterating and saying, yeah, that's right. But when you're getting 3 different opinions, if that's what it was, because I didn't particularly listen to the corner. You know, everybody's giving advice, and in reality, you know, John Fury's not a corner man, is he? He was a boxer. You know, and you've got to have a lot of experience being a corner man. You've got to be good. You can't just be going in with Tyson Fury. You've got to be doing corners for years and years and years. Before I actually went in the corner with my dad, I'd been on the road with lower level fighters on myself, travelling all over the place. And then I did the high profile fights with him, but I was just washing the gum shield and doing the cuts. And yeah, there were some times when I did say things to the fighters in the corner, but it was only reiterating and backing up what Brendan had said. So, you know, and obviously we're the family, and I've been in boxing a long time. So unless you've had experience of doing a wide range of corners, you know, with a wide array, you know, with different fighters over the years and the experience, then you shouldn't really be doing a corner. Now, I don't even know I don't really know how prolific Sugar Hill's been. All I know is, when I think of Sugar Hill, I just think, is Emmanuel Stewart's nephew. Well, what has he done in boxing? I don't know. Has he produced any champions from scratch? Has he developed it? Been with anybody long term over 10 years? You know, has he brought people through? Or has he just been one of these American guys, which you see so many of, who's just jumping on the back of somebody else you know, and jumping from one to another, because there's plenty of them. So I don't know really the history of Sugar Hill. And same with Andy Lee. Andy Lee's been a boxer, fine, very good as a boxer. Doesn't mean he's very good as a corner man. And yeah, he's had success with Joseph Parker. But who else? Over years. Has he done it for 10 years? I know he did it with Jason Quigley.
He's got Paddy Donovan.
Yeah, but I'm saying, but how long's he been doing trainers? You know what I mean? It's like, it don't matter. Just because you're a boxer for 15 years does not give you an automatic upgrade to be a trainer, because it's from the other side.
It's an interesting...
It's like me saying, well, I've been training Kell Brooks for all these years, I'm going to be a boxer. I can convert to being a boxer because I've been a trainer. I know what moves, I know what shots, but it don't work that way, does it?
So there are obviously three voices in the corner, and then like you said there, sometimes it may work. You're saying Billy preferred it like that. Do you think that could have caused issues on the night, or do you think?
I think ultimately, when push comes to shove, when you're in that position, and your back's up against the wall, you just revert to type, and that's what Tyson will have done. He took his own advice. He'll have listened to what people were saying, but ultimately he'll have gone out and done his own thing. There, he did say, I was told that I only had to survive this round and I won the fight. Well, you should never say that to a fighter unless you know you're miles and miles in front, and he wasn't miles and miles in front. And a fight of that magnitude, you can never say that to a fighter. I always remember being in the corner with a fighter when I was really young, and I said, he came back to the corner, and I said to this kid, "You're winning this fight." And Mickey Duff was there, and he was one of Mickey Duff fighters, and Mickey Duff pulled me afterwards. He goes, "Never tell a fighter that he's winning the fight, or he's in front, or he's winning it easy." He goes, "Never tell him that." And that was a lesson learned. That was from Mickey Duff, who'd been around for years and years and years and been in lots of fights. Don't forget, I think he was in the corner when Floyd Honeyghan beat Don Curry.
Do you remember that advice from Mickey Duff?
So never tell the fighter that they're that far in front or it's easy, unless it is blatantly obvious they're winning every single round, or you're trying to do an edge job on the other guy. But a fight of that magnitude with Tyson and Usyk, it's like every round counts. Every single round counts. Every single round.
What do you think he needs to do to avenge that loss now?
For me, look, Tyson might have, in his mind, thought he were fit. He might have thought, well, I've trained hard. This is what I normally am. This is what, how I feel and ran, the weight that I should be. And I'm going to be fit. But, he's fighting Usyk, who is a very, very determined fighter. You think he's come up from cruiserweight and he's beat everybody. Right, all right, he might, when he first came up and people said, "Oh, Chisora gave him an odd fight and mauled him," or whatever, fair enough. But he's actually beat all the top heavyweights around. So that's a warning sign straight away. Just because Tyson might consider himself as the best heavyweight and the biggest and the longest and everything else, there's a guy in there who's going to get in and who's small, who's going to get in and fight him no matter what, and he's not scared. And he comes from a very good pedigree background. I know we've had this conversation about, his amateur experience and all these facts, and I turn around and say, well, in the professional game, it doesn't really count. It's what you do in the professionals, it's a different ball game. And I had a look through Usyk's amateur record, and guess what? He was beaten by Sean Porter in the amateurs at middleweight. So that's why you can't rely on that kind of information. It's useful and it's great to see his progress, but then Sean Porter moved down to welterweight and Usyk moved up to cruiserweight. But it's what you do. So, imagine that somebody looked through Usyk's record and said, "Well, look, we lost to as an amateur. If a blooming middleweight beat him or Sean Porter beat him." It's like you can't use that. You can only use what's relevant. And it's the same is that, Tyson or his team or him or whatever, they should have been looking at his form and looking his determination and thinking this is a real threat. And for me, I just think Tyson Fury had to be a lot fitter. Do you understand? A lot fitter. Usyk's 37, Tyson's 35. It's about 2 years difference. It is more difficult as you get older, keeping your cardiovascular fitness, and he's a smaller guy, but he's going to manage. His body weight is probably compatible with his age, where he can keep that body moving. Tyson's 35, but he's a big lump. and it's harder carrying that mass around, and especially at the way that it works. But for me, it looked from where I was that Tyson round about 5 and 6, he could see the pace was getting to him. And I think Usyk could see that. And when he got,
Could that not just be because I've seen Tony Bellew say this about Usyk before, that he physically drains you? So could it not just be?
Yeah,
Usyk's-
no, he does, but that's Tony Bellew talking about that, and like that's Tony Bellew. That's not. It's not. No disrespect to Tony Bellew. It's not like he's an elite fighter. So, you know, Usyk does that because of the way he fights. He's plenty of feints. He's moving. He's making you think all the time. He's keeping you toes. But when that happens, when somebody's buzzing around in front of you, and they're trying all those feints. You see, Tyson, he was fencing him, putting his arm out and fencing him and blocking him and pushing him around with his hand and putting his hand out in front of him. That's hard to do because it burns your shoulder out and it's tiring. But Usyk found it difficult to get past that. Now, the very simple thing to do with a fighter like Usyk, the height and the ability of Tyson, is Tyson really realistic could have stood in the middle of that ring all night and hit him with jabs and kept him off. He just covered his chin with his right hand and held his ground. Every time Usyk came in, just lean on him, push him off. Jab, jab. Because when he started putting it on Usyk and giving him the body shots, Usyk had to back up and he did look in trouble. It's just that Tyson couldn't sustain it. So the ideal game plan for Tyson was to stand there, pop with the jab, pop with the jab. When Usyk comes in, tie him up, push him off, hit him with uppercuts, push him off, hit him with the jab, keep him there again, stand there. But you've got to be fit to do it. When you start backing off and going to the corner and covering up, realistically you're getting a rest. So for me, Tyson had to be, super fit, even fitter than he thought he needed to be. He had to kind of overcompensate for his fitness. And people are going to say, a load of rubbish. Usyk's not getting any younger. That was Usyk's ultimate fight, right? His best fight. It was the top of the mountain. He had to be the fittest and in the best physical shape he could be in. And he was still troubled by Tyson. Yeah, he came through and won. I don't actually believe that was Tyson's best physical shape, fitness-wise. He got the weight off. Brilliant. But I don't think he was in the best state of fitness to manage 12 rounds
why
with
though?
somebody like us. Because I just don't think he's pushed himself hard enough. He might have thought he has. But if he's the one who's dictating how much work he's got to do.
But he's got an S&C coach, he's got a nutrition, all these
It
people,
doesn't matter.
surely they keep logs of the numbers.
Years ago, when Nazim Ali came through and Errol Graham and all the big fighters of the past, there were no such thing as S&C coaches. They weren't. There was no such thing as dietitians. The boxers did their own weight. They did they did whatever they needed to do. Right? They managed themselves. They didn't have anybody else manage them. They had a boxing trainer. That was it, more or less. That's all they had. So all of a sudden, these jobs of nutritionist, S&C coach, S&C coach. Joe Calzaghe didn't have an S&C coach or a nutritionist. I can remember being in Vegas with Joe Calzaghe and he was eating McDonald's and putting loads of sugar in his drinks. And I just asked him about his weight loss and he said, I do it this way. Basically, I eat crap when I'm training. I train it off. I get myself into peak physical shape and then crash weight. That's what he said. Naz did a similar kind of thing. They have nutritionists around him or S&C. So, and how is that, unless you're actually in boxing as a boxing coach, how can you as an S&C coach, unless you've been in boxing a long time, live with fight and analyse the fight. You've seen him for an hour a day or an hour and a half a day doing S&C. Realistically, you should maybe do 2 sessions of 45 minutes a week with an S&C, because boxing isn't S&C. Boxing is skill based. It's technique. It's fitness. Yeah, some unskilled fighters who no matter what they do aren't highly skilled. They will rely more on power and fitness. Yeah, that's what they'll do. Because that's easier. Power and fitness is easier to do than boxing skill. So You know, when you see he's got this and he's got that, he's got all these people working for him. Well, that's fine, but you've got to understand how long have they been in boxing conditioning people for? I've been in boxing.
I think his S&C coach has been with him for 9 years.
Yeah, well, he might have been. But if you look at Tyson's body, it doesn't reflect that he's like in honed physical condition, does it? And that's what you'd expect from an S&C coach.
What do you think? Do you think he needs to keep the same team? Do you think he needs to make changes?
Only Tyson would know that. It's not for me to say. Unless you go in and observe people, what they're doing, unless you go in and see what he's training as, and you know what how hard he's working, who can say? You can't just go on what they've said in the corner. Give, you know, whether it's conflicting advice, the same advice, their opinions. You can't just work off that. You can't say, oh, I should change corner team, should change his training camp.
It's the
unless you observe it, unless you watch what he's doing.
Yeah, because you can imagine the blame game comes out in these scenarios. Everyone,
look,
they're looking for
at
a
the
head
end
to
of
chop.
the day, the only person to blame, if there's anybody to blame, who do you think it should be?
You're going to say the fighter, aren't you?
It's because, do you know why? Because they make the choices who train them. Right? They make the choices when they want to train and when they don't want to train, and when they don't feel like training, when they do. And they make the choices who they have around them. Simple as that. So when you've trained a wide range of fighters like I've, and before that my dad, and when I weren't even training people at that high level, when I was watching everybody's personalities and individuality and what they like to do, they weren't all Floyd Mayweather how they lived, or they weren't particularly disciplined. There were some of the most undisciplined fighters who were quite successful, but they were only successful for a short period of time. And then there were some very disciplined fighters who weren't fantastic, who had a very good steady career. So when you've had all them types, and you can draw from that pool of information, you can make assessments. So it'd be wrong for me to say, he should change this and he should change that. All I would say is that for me, for Tyson to beat Usyk, he just had to be a lot fitter so he could execute those little pockets where Tyson looked great, when he was hitting him with the uppercuts and hitting with the jab and hitting with the body shots, and Usyk looked flustered. Those times in the fight happen very far and few between.
He needs more of that.
He needs more of that, and he needs to be able to execute that better.
Fascinating. Well, the last thing about the fight, Carl Froch it's gone quite viral, this opinion, and there's been a lot of talk about it. I'll quote him. He said, Tyson's been a fantastic fighter, unbelievable career, but he's not what he's telling everybody or what John Fury's telling everybody. No man born from his mother can beat him. He's been humbled. Basically saying that his legacy is not as... questioning his legacy.
Well, the thing is, look, people... Cole Froch was a hard fighter. I watched a lot of his fights, and he turned pro quite late, about 27, I think he was. And he developed as a fighter, and he had some terrific fights, and he beat some good guys. He was raw, he could punch, he could take a shot. He was a bit kamikaze at times, and people said, but yeah, who would have won between Calzaghe and Cole Froch? And I'd always say Calzaghe, because I believe he did. He would. And, Cole Froch got beat by Andre Ward, who was a very skilled fighter, very tricky fighter, very good fighter. And there's no shame in that. But the one thing about Cole Froch is, especially when he boxed Jermaine Taylor, who beat Bernard Hopkins a few times in that middleweight division, that super middleweight division at the time was very good. Even when he was getting beat for 11 and a half rounds by Jermaine Taylor, he kept going and kept going and kept going, and he flattened him in the last round. And that's one thing you can say about Cole Froch is, he can say these things because he had some really, really hard fights. I remember when he won the world title fight at super middleweight in Nottingham against...
Andre Durrell?
No, that was a defence.
Oh, the Bute?
No.
Pascal?
That was an absolute war. I was ringside, they were knocking lumps off each other. And Froch was taking them full on. It was a hard fight. Froch came through it. And he had a good career and he made plenty of money. So he's right. Look, Tyson Fury was the best of the heavyweights until he got beat on Saturday night. And this is what I always say. It's not being nasty. It's just all to do with relevance. Would Tyson Fury have beat Mike Tyson? Would Tyson Fury in his prime beat Mike Tyson in his prime? Would he have beat either of the Klitschko's in the prime? Would he have beat Lennox Lewis both being in the prime? And I don't believe he would have beat Lennox Lewis. I don't believe he'd have beat Mike Tyson. I don't believe it'd probably be either of the Klitschko's in their prime. But you very rarely get fighters fighting each other in the prime. Even Lennox Lewis and Mike Tyson didn't fight each other in the prime. Lennox Lewis just had more in the tank when they boxed, and Tyson had more wear and tear. But he wasn't at his prime, but he won. When Tyson beat Klitschko in Germany, he wasn't at his prime. He'd been champion for a while. He was coming down. He was getting older. There was whatever the age difference is. There might be 10 years difference.
He had a year off after that and nearly beat Anthony Joshua.
Exactly. So that puts it in perspective with Joshua again. Now, this is not being disrespectful to Tyson, and it's not being disrespectful to Usyk when I say that, yeah, he is an undisputed champion. But you take him back, would he have beat Mike Tyson? Would he have beat Lennox Lewis? And I don't think he would have done. But he's the undisputed at this moment in time. Josh Taylor was the undisputed champion at 10 stone. Would he have beat Floyd Mayweather at 10 stone? Would he have beat Ricky Hatton at 10 stone? I don't think he would have done. But he was the undisputed champion for a very short period of time. It's all about levels. And unfortunately, the level today of boxers is not the same as it was 10, 15 years ago.
Why is that?
Because they're just not.
That natural ability you're talking
Well,
about?
just look at it. Sugar Ray Leonard was champion at 10.5 stone. Yeah?
Yeah.
All right. We've got Crawford as the undisputed. Who's going to win? He's not beating Sugar Ray Leonard. It don't matter what anybody says, he's not beating Sugar Ray Leonard. They were doing 15 rounds at full pelt, fighting people like Thomas Hearns. Yeah, Duran beat him. But there's going to be people who agree and people who disagree. Crawford is not a Roberto Duran. Right? So it's levels and it's time frames. So Usyk, fair play to him, fantastic. He's set out and he's conquered the world.
If Fury doesn't take the rematch, or
But you said it's already been confirmed he has.
the saying yes, but just anything can happen, injuries, whatever.
Has Usyk broke his own jaw? Is his jaw broke?
No, his jaw's not broke.
Right, okay.
But
Was he taking an inhaler, or was he kissing a cross?
it looked like a cross, to be fair. I've seen the TNT footage yet. But does anybody, other than if you take Fury out of the equation, does anybody in this era beat Alexander?
It doesn't look like it, does it? Because who is there to beat him? Who is there to beat? He's beat everybody. He's beat Anthony Joshua twice, and he's beat everybody else. What heavyweight hasn't he boxed? He hasn't boxed Dubois. Not C. Dubois. Oh, sorry.
He has boxed.
He has boxed Dubois, sorry.
Wilder, you mean?
Yeah, he hasn't boxed Wilder. I don't see Wilder beating him. So, who else has he got to box in the heavyweights who's relevant?
I can't see him fighting any of the young guns that are coming through. So,
Like who?
Moses Ituma's highly rated, but he's probably a couple of years away from
Yeah,
something
probably.
like
Even at the
that. Usyk
advanced,
could be done by then.
even at the advanced stage that Usyk's at, he's always going to be somebody who's younger, who's got more of an engine, who's more of a risk, who can afford to throw everything at it. And if they lose, they've got time to come again, because by that time Usyk will be out of it, and that heavyweight will get another chance. Look at Golovkin against Canelo. Canelo's about 34 now. Would the 34-year-old version of Canelo beat the 34-year-old version of Golovkin? Because Golovkin was 34 when he boxed Canelo. I think there's about 7 years difference. So looking at Canelo in his last fight, and I think Canelo's about 34 now, would that version of Canelo, the 34-year-old who boxed the other, is he 34?
I think so. He's not far off.
Yeah. Would he have beat that version of Golovkin?
I see what you're saying. You're basically saying that as they get older,
It's different. Everything's different.
Yeah,
It's the same. We go back even wide, and we go back to when Amir Khan beat Barrera. But it wasn't the Barrera who beat Naz.
I got you.
So it's all about the fair play to Usyk. He set his goal and has achieved his goal.
In one short answer, from what they're saying, basically, can Tyson Fury's legacy be questioned based on what he's done so far?
Well,
because bear in mind he's won every single title, but obviously he's not been unified, undisputed champion, but he has won every single belt.
I think I look at boxing different to fans. I look at boxing as a way to change how your life is, and to make money, and to get out with as many of your faculties as you can. Because and the reason I look at it this way is because I look at people like Muhammad Ali, who was a fantastic ambassador for boxing, is an icon, and the way he ended up, like for me, kind of like thinks, well, what's the point of achieving all that if that's the way that you go out at the end? When you look at people like George Foreman, who he beat, who's still walking around, making a load of money, having a great life, and he's still alive, because you can't put any price on that. So I look at legacies and boxing different to everybody else. I look at it in a way that it moves you on financially, it moves you on in the world, and it's a dangerous great game, and you need to be compensated for that. And having a legacy and being skint, having a load of belts and a legacy and being skint doesn't mean anything, because it's everybody talking about all the great fights that they've watched, but you could be sat in a house somewhere on yourself, blowing bubbles, as my dad would say, punch drunk, and nobody bothered about you. And that's what happens to a lot of fighters. So look at that side, and they could have the best legacies in the world. And what does it mean at the end of the day? It doesn't mean anything. It's just the fans can, he boxed him and he beat that, and it's a great legacy. Well, fantastic. But it's not a great legacy for the person who's not, aware of what's going around them because they've been done in boxing.